Welcome to the Soul Revival Podcast, where we have deep and meaningful conversations exploring modalities, tools, and healing, guiding you back to your most expansive soul self. Welcome back to this episode of the Soul Revival Podcast. I am so thrilled to have this very special guest with me today. I know there's going to be so many beautiful nuggets, especially around grief journey with my guest today. My guest joining us today is Scott Graham. Scott, welcome to the Soul Revival Podcast.
Hey, it is great to be here, Lindsay. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Now, if you've listened to our podcast, you know the format. So we start every episode with the same question, and that is, what aligns you most to your soul self?
I think what for me, it's activities that are grounded in service and activities that are grounded in the presence. Specifically, each week, I teach Tai Chi to the elderly. I guess I'm elderly too, but it's I'm the young person in the group. People there are there in their 80s, and we spend an hour every Tuesday from 10 to 11 outside. We were inside, then COVID hit, and we went outside and we never went back. And rain or shine, snow, we're outside doing Tai Chi every Tuesday by this great waterfall. And it's really a blessing. That's when I feel most in alignment. Even when I'm having a crappy week, like I go to that and I'm like, oh, it was the best thing ever.
I love that. And it's such a reminder of when we are air quotes in service, like we are also in service to ourselves through that connection that we make. And anytime, of course, we can be in nature, that always helps with that connection too. So thank you
Always.
for that answer. Um, so do you mind? I want to dive in. I'm really looking forward to the conversation around your book, right? I
Let's
know it's so
dive.
easy
Let's
to dive,
dive.
right? But I do want to give an opportunity to set up a little bit of the backstory. So for our audience, do you mind a little bit of your journey, sharing a little bit of your journey, your background that kind of led you to write all the beautiful work that you've written? Specifically, we're going to dive into Tao of Grief. Do you mind giving a little bit of your backstory on that?
Yeah, sure. I in 2019, my husband of 31 years died in a horrific car accident. And that was right before COVID started. So most of us remember, unless you were under a rock, we all ended up under a rock with COVID. It was like total lockdown, total isolation. I'm a trained therapist, and my big insight after he died and I was going through my own grief process. I mean, I'd been a therapist for like 35 years. I realized everything that I was doing around grief, not a little bit, everything was just bullshit. And I had really damaged a lot of people by giving them incorrect things about grief that I was taught.
Right.
I was taught, and it just not true. And so the outcome of that was my first book around grief, which was "Come as You Are: Meditation in Grief." And then my as my grief journey continued, 3 years later, I wrote another book, cleverly called "Come as You Are 3 Years Later." Along the way, I wrote another book called "MDMA and Grief," where I used MDMA, which is uh, you might call it a hallucinogenic drug. It's not really, but it's more like a feel good drug to really go deeper through some of my grief memories and uh and dive deep into some things. And then 5 years later, I wrote cleverly called "Come as You Are 5 Years Later." And so this is like four books that I wrote around grief. And then recently I wrote The Tao of Grief. And that is the culmination of all those five books and distilled into 100 word, one pagey type poems. The interesting thing I have to tell you, Lindsay, everybody that has gotten the Tao of grief. Like this was not my intention, but this is like the result when you're going through a journey
Hmm.
and you get to some point, right? This is like the culmination. Like they'll get to some part of it and then they're like blown away because it really speaks to their soul in a way that they're totally surprised of. And I could not have done this 5 years ago. Like I had to do the other
Yeah.
stuff
Right.
to get to that.
Yeah, I understand that completely. And do you feel like your writing was channeled?
I don't know. I am, you know, before coming on here, I looked at your website and read through your page, and I read about uh, your connection with your husband after he died, and I had never, I never deeply considered that until actually this point in time.
Well, that's amazing. Maybe that's part of the reason. I'm a firm believer that even the hard things in our life happen for a reason and that there's a why behind them. And maybe that's the why of you and I connecting, converging on this journey. Says, I definitely know that so many of the things that you wrote resonated with me, and the book I wrote, yes, my name's on it, but it was definitely partially channeled with my husband on the other side, who very much guides me in the work that I do to help people. Because, like you mentioned, I found myself in the same place where my mother is a therapist and traditional. And I think, therapy is a beautiful thing, and there are so many tools with it that obviously deeply resonate. But I think you also need to listen to how your body's guiding you. And for me specifically, I just didn't, I knew it was an inner job. I knew that I needed to do meditation. I was called to movement. Those were the practices that literally kept me putting one foot in front of the other, which was the only thing I could do at that time. So I think that your recognition of what helped you and what didn't help you is really going to resonate with people, because each one of us goes on a different journey. But just knowing that what we get taught or preached about culturally in regards to grief, you can kind of throw a lot of it out the window and stay true to your own experience and what your body is telling you.
Absolutely. We give so much of our soul away to other people because we're told that we're diagnosed with this or we have this mental whatever and we need to be this way instead of that way. And that's all. They're great, as you said, Lindsay, therapy tools that are out there. But ultimately, it's managed by people. And
Right.
people have agendas, people have political views, people have stereotypes, and that is fallible.
Yeah.
That's
And,
fallible.
a lot of the things that we learn throughout school are prescriptive, and, it's not actually experiential. It's more prescriptive in nature. And there's nothing that requires you to be more experiential, in my opinion, than dealing with your own grief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not something that you can put a timeline on.
No.
It's really, I said this to someone today. I said, you know, uh it's if someone were to turn to you and Lindsay and say, you're still grieving, that's so you might say that's insulting to you, Lindsay, but really it's insulting to your husband and
Yes.
the depth of your love for him and the
Yes.
depth of his love for you. That's the real insult.
Yeah.
That's the real slight.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and it just minimizes that and turns what is core to that grieving process, turns it into just some sort of flippant one page.
Hmm. Well, and I think it's like anything in life, right? I mean, you're going to have people on one side of the fence or the other. There's going to be some people who think, you should dedicate your life to, being in a deep tunnel of grief. And then you've got the other people who think you should, quote unquote, get over it, which you and I both are on the same page. There's no such thing as getting over it. You're just not the same anymore. You're never going to be the same anymore.
Right. Right.
And I think in all areas of life, we just have to live our truth and be our authentic self because there's always going to be somebody that has an opinion that's different than yours.
Right. And just because that opinion is in a book someplace, like
Right.
the DSM, or
Yes.
it's associated with medications, does not mean that it is the truth
Possible. Yeah,
at
exactly.
all. And so I remind people of this: December 15th, 1973. That's an important date because on December 14th, 1973, there were hundreds of thousands of gay men and lesbians in the United States that had mental illness. And on December 15th, 1973, because of a vote, they were all miraculously
Right.
cured. The mental illness was gone. It was
Wow.
there and then it was gone. And so the same thing is happening with grief. There's this new thing out called I don't know, prolonged grief disorder or something that they just voted on, just a couple of years ago and approved, right? And the yays had more of it than the nays, and now it's an official diagnosis,
Yeah.
and I'd be slapped with that now.
Yeah. Well, it's like giving antibiotics for every sniffle, It's the same
Yes.
type of thing, really. Well, I do want to dive into your book, and I'll just tell you, I rarely look at notes when I'm recording an episode of the podcast, just because I really like it to be in a flow. But there are some specific quotes and language that I want to make sure I capture exactly accurately. So if you see me looking down at notes, that's a rarity, but I am going to do it this time.
Wow, I feel honored that you're going to look down at those notes.
So, one of the things that out of the gate caught my attention was your line in the book, these pages weren't invented, they were remembered. And to me, that's like really truly anchoring into the soul essence of your connection with your person on the other side.
Yeah. I can feel myself um uh, yeah, those that book was not something that um was prescriptive. Like I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write this and put this out. I told you that in the introduction that it came about from all the learnings over the last 5 or 6 years that I had, where I was like, and I strove to take strived, I don't to take those pieces and those essences and with wisdom bring them into the book.
You
And
did.
they're actually it
Yeah.
also reflects a piece that I forgot about who I was. And this is where you were talking about staying true to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the format too. So for anybody listening, it is like short little vignettes and each one of them is so powerful and they weave this beautiful web of a story collectively, but individually standing on their own, they're also deep truths that I think anybody who's experienced loss can 100% resonate with. So amazing format. I just have to say that.
Yeah, I feel really lucky that I was able to. I don't know how it came about. Really, it just
Maybe
seemed
maybe
like
our conversation today will expand your thoughts
it
around
will.
that
It
title.
will.
The next one I wanted to point out was your reference of no more normal waiting to be recovered. And that really spoke to me because I remember a friend of mine whose husband had passed several years before mine and, young and, totally unexpected, right? I mean, on paper. And her telling me that, and I met her when her husband was sick, her telling me that I wish you had met me before he got sick because I was so much more fun. And at the time, I had not experienced a huge loss yet. And so I always remembered that, but I didn't truly appreciate what she meant by that until after Roger had passed. And your line in your book really made me think about that. you can't go back to that quote unquote normal version of what you envision for the future or who you were, or even so much of your identity that's tied to being in a relationship and being a couple presenting in the world. And that just really got me, that line in your book.
Mm. Yeah, we're we are given by psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers this idea of normal.
Thank you for listening to the Soul Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Stanton. I want to give you a special offer for all those who leave us a 5-star review. All you have to do is take a screenshot of that 5-star review, email it to info@thesoulrevival.com, and every month we're going to be giving away 30 days of the community membership. 30 days of community membership. That's 30 days of being around like-minded people who are on their spiritual expansion journey. All you have to do is give us a 5-star review, snap a screenshot, and email it to info@thesoulrevival.com. Thank you so much for listening.
That there's this way to be, and we're sold this false bill of goods that if we get to X, Y, and Z, whatever that is, it's going to be magical for us, right? That the goal of life is to be happy. Like if you go to Amazon and Google happiness, there's tons of stuff about how you can be happy. There's 5 things people do to stay happy in their older age. And we're pushed for that so much that we think that that's the way that it has to be. And that's not the way that it has to be. Just because a day is overcast doesn't mean that it's a bad day. Right? Just because there's clouds in the sky and rain doesn't mean it's a bad day. And if we had nothing but sunny days and without any rain, we'd be complaining about drought, and we'd see it's not good when we have nothing but sunny days and
And
warm
also,
days.
then you have no point of reference for the beautiful things, right? I mean, if you don't
Correct.
experience the deep hurts, the really hard times, how do you really truly appreciate the beauty and the miracles and the magic?
Yeah, they find that is true, as they find that people get, more just about things,
Yeah.
right? I got
Oh,
the new car and the new things, and you get this like elation of happiness because of the new car, and then it just goes back down and it becomes, it's a car, and
yeah.
then that doesn't cut it anymore. You got to get the new helicopter, and then that doesn't cut it anymore, and you got to get the new jet. You
Yes.
know, if 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 things were magical, rich people would not be killing themselves.
Exactly. I was going to say the exact same thing. And I think also, I just want to mention that thinking that we have to have some standard of recovery or getting back to quote unquote normal also makes people's grief journey even more difficult, but that because that is such an unrealistic standard to set. And as a griever, I then feel like I'm like lacking, I'm somehow failing at my grief because I'm not accomplishing that. And it's an unrealistic bar to even set to begin with.
Right, right. Lindsay, are you familiar with the story behind the stages of grief?
Yes.
So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with them,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
she, for you listeners, she came up with the stages of grief, but it was written for people who had terminal illnesses and they were dying.
Yes.
And how did they come to grips with their terminal illness? And then her book, which was called On Death and Dying, was hijacked. It was hijacked. There are no stages of grief.
Yeah.
There are
Well,
no
she's even
stages of grief.
said that that's
Yes,
not, I mean, she's come out and
yes,
said that should not have been used for the purpose that it's been used.
yes. Did you guys hear what that? Say that again.
That book has not been used for the purpose that it was meant to be used.
And the author said that. The
Yes.
author.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. This is why we need to trust into our bodies. Like, where are you being
Absolutely.
guided?
Right.
Okay. So another one that really caught my attention was grief remakes you, not by consent. And I think this, to me, honestly, this is a bit of a mirror to what you just mentioned with the weather, right? I mean, we wouldn't sign up for like cloudy, rainy days or tornadoes, but in a way, even though none of us signed up for grief, it does make us more aware of the size and breadth of our love as well.
Right. Right. My today is particularly poignant as we're talking. My niece, who's 8 months older than me, she's more like my sister. She's in the hospital, and she's her heart's not working well, and it really brought up feelings of loss around Brian again. Her husband, and her are like the straight counterpart of me and Brian. They're together. Their commitment to each other is so profound and deep. He's been sleeping at the hospital since she's been there. It's exactly what Brian would have done if I were in her shoes. Um, and we have to allow our feelings to remake us and not resist them.
Yeah.
Uh,
I talk a lot about duality, and I find that there's a very complex duality around fear of additional loss. And there's like this way that we go about the world that it's like we can take on anything because we've been through the hardest of the things and we can love the biggest we've ever loved. And also, we're gripping because we don't want to get hit again. And it's like this push pull energy that I feel like anybody that's been in deep grief kind of knows what I'm talking about because it's both exist at the same time. It's like you've got this like freedom that you can never ever be hit with a loss as huge as the one you've been hit with, but then there's also this like restrictive energy that's like save everybody and anything close to me.
oh man, that's the book that I wrote 5 years later that I just wrote last year because I fell in love again. And it totally pulled the rug out from me. And people, it's funny, people that don't get it, they're like, oh, it brought up memories of Brian. It was like, no, 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 you don't get it. What happened was that I struggled because I knew what grief was, and I didn't want to. And I know that that's coming again. So it's like I'm putting my hands on the fire,
Yes. Yeah.
right? I'm putting
Yes.
my hands on the fire. And that really took a lot of work staying in the present
Yeah.
and not gripping and clinging, right? That's the piece. We cling. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also brings a specific awareness to elements of your grief that you couldn't have otherwise realized, right? I mean, I think it shines a spotlight on some things that might not have had to come up before naturally because you're, by yourself and you're, managing, you create these self-protection mechanisms
Right.
that serve you to keep you here in the physical world when you're going through it. But then if you do enter into a new relationship, it challenges you and like it creates an internal fight and it definitely creates some awareness around challenges that you might not even been aware of with your grief.
Yeah. I had created a strong sense of indifference towards other folks, and that insulated me.
Mm.
But if you're in love with someone, that indifference melts away. And because I had created such a strong sense of indifference, I didn't create a sense of equanimity and balance. I didn't build on that skill because I just kept people, I just didn't give a shit. That's what I did. I was like, whatever. I kept people at such an arm's length. And it was challenging, but really important to learn to have equanimity and love deeply at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The next one I want to mention, and I literally just recorded an entire solo episode on this topic because it was so important. It was a big call out in my book too. You talk about letting go versus letting be.
letting go was such a trigger for me. I still don't really even like that terminology. And I just did a whole breakdown of actually the meaning of the word of letting it go versus release, which is a completely different meaning behind it when you like deep dive into the Latin origins. But talk to me a little bit about your experience with letting it go versus letting it be.
Letting it be is the equanimity piece. Letting it go is the indifference piece, right? And when you say you've let it go and you're indifferent, you really haven't let it go. That's the truth. You're still
Yeah.
kind of gripping onto it. You're just trying to hypnotize yourself
Yeah.
that you've let it go.
Yeah.
A great weather metaphor, right? Um, Somebody goes out, and this really stands out to me as a way to see grief. One person goes out and it's raining, and they let it be. Well, what does that mean? It's raining. I got to put a rain jacket on. It's raining. Oh, now it's misting. I'm going to take my rain jacket off. It's hot, right? You're letting it, whatever it is, as it is, not as I want it to be at all. That's the key. As
Yes.
it is, not as I want it to be. That's letting it be. Letting it go happens when you go out and you might have a rain jacket or not, but you're just bitching and moaning about the rain. I can't believe it's raining. It's rained so much. Again, this is the shittiest rain jacket I got. Why didn't I get that rain jacket? I should be doing this. It's going to rain all day. All my plants are going to get water. I mean, you go on and on and
Yeah.
on. And then what happens is that you let go. Someone says, let it go. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to let go of this thing about the jacket. I'm going to let go of this thing about the plants. You're really trying to antidote your way of being that wouldn't come about if you just let it be.
Hmm.
It is as it is. It's raining, and I'm just going to go out about my business. I'm going to put a rain jacket on and protect myself, or an umbrella and protect myself. Instead, you don't do that. You bitch and moan, all this stuff comes up, and then you focus on letting that. You're not dealing with the rain when you're letting go. You're dealing with all this other shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge
Have you
difference.
have you read Michael A. Singer's books, Untethered Soul?
Yes,
Yeah, and Living Untethered. That
right,
you're what you everything you just said made me think of his work, like that it's not like a personal thing. The weather isn't out there to upset you. It's like your stuff that's creating the reaction to the rain. What
right,
yeah.
right. And here's what's happening. If you go to see a therapist and you go to see a traditional cognitive behavioral therapist, they're going to ask you to look at your thoughts. And your thoughts are going to be like, I have a shitty rain jacket. It's raining too much. The plants are doing this. And then they're going to give you affirmations to help you let it go. It's all the wrong stuff to deal with. It's all the wrong stuff because what you have to focus on is letting it be
Yeah.
and being present with what it is and not all this other mumbo jumbo. Let me stare and look in front of the mirror and say, I'm healing, I'm growing, and whatever mantra that the cognitive behavioral therapist has you write out.
Well, and I think it goes to, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, science even agrees that everything is energy and it's the energy we have behind it. Like, if you don't believe a positive mantra or you don't believe, that you totally are in the irritation of not having the right jacket, like you're going to be in the energy of that irritation, no matter what you do or say besides that.
Because your other mind knows. Evil
Yes.
Scott, if I sit down and say, let's say I'm down on myself about something and I come up with some positive mantra, Evil Scott already knows that I'm coming up with this positive mantra and he is saying, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. You might not hear it really loud, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you completely. Uh, let's talk about the thief called fear. I love your reference to that in the book. And it is, obviously we're constantly dealing with this. And I think it also goes to our conversation earlier about fear of additional loss and kind of having that always laying underneath, even when we've done a lot of the hard work.
Man, Lindsay, we spend so much of our lives in fear,
Mm.
so much of our lives in fear. And it's not just about grief. People
Right.
spend their lives because they want to do this, they want to get this job, they want to do that, but they just don't.
Yeah.
They're just stuck in fear. Um,
And I do think
and
that's a little bit, sorry to interrupt you, but I do think that's a little bit of the gift of grief that you don't give an F. Like you're going to jump for the job, you're going to write the book because you know you've witnessed, you've lived. There's no reason to hold yourself back.
right, right. Yeah, grief is a gift. It shakes you in a way that you it's it's like it's like an emotional coming out. As a gay man, I went through life with all this angst and stuff. And then at some point, I came out of the closet and I was different because I embraced who I truly was. Right.
Right.
The same thing happens for some people around grieving who don't get sucked back into this kind of whatever mumbo jumbo. They come out and they embrace the grief and who they truly are.
Mhm.
And then they realize what a great gift they have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You referenced a little bit later in the book the geography of a memory. And I'd love to explore where kind of your thoughts around that and then share a story of something that happened to me recently.
But I want to hear, can you share your story first?
Yeah. So, and anybody who's experienced huge loss will probably relate to this. Anybody, I apologize, that's listening that hasn't, they might not be able to understand this. So I recently went into a doctor's office. I was getting some testing done, and I walked back, a brand new building, beautiful building, and I walked back into the area to get the testing done. And I have no idea what it was. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't like Rogers, like aftershave or cologne, but there was a scent that immediately took me back to some experience. I don't know if it was this lifetime or a past lifetime, but definitely a connection between him and I. And it was this beautiful, like soul level remembering that I felt in my body, in my entire being, and it was joyful. I felt joy of it. And then I got to the car and I completely lost it. And when I read that line in your book, it immediately took me to that happening to me last week.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you that haven't had this around a grief experience, I bet there's a song that can take you back to high school. Or you'll see something from some old television show, or it could be a smell, right? It could be something that your mom used to make when you were a kid, right? A comfort food. What does that comfort food mean, right? It's solidified into part of who we are because of the emotions and spirit and mental outlook that was attached to that. And that was a big part of, I purposely did that with Brian. We had specific vacation spots that we went to, like New Orleans and Williamsburg, Virginia. And not only did we, and this is definitely something that gay men can do. We can't do this. I suppose you could do it as straight, but like we could wear the same deodorant. We could, we could wear the same cologne. So we just packed one set of cologne, and so I put together like a playlist of songs that was like the Williamsburg playlist and like the New Orleans playlist. And we also had a bunch of colognes and stuff that we only use those when we were at those locations. And the impact was profound. I mean, the idea was that, when they would come back, right, hear that song, boy,
Yeah,
we're back at
anchors
that
and
spot. And it was a powerful piece to set up and do. I didn't do it because of grief, but now when those smells and a song comes back, I am like instantly back to those vacation spots that we went to, or those experiences, right? Every, it was like a ritual. We worked really hard to make it a ritual when we went on vacation. We had a specific restaurant when we would go to New Orleans. On the day that we would get in, we would go to New Orleans and have oysters on the half shell and beer. Always at Felix's in New Orleans. That was the place that we went. We do that. It was a tradition, right? That memory has been cemented. Um, and I'm glad I've done that because there are these anchor points to hang on to, even though there's kind of sadness, which is the grief part coming up that's associated with them.
Yeah. I would share with you, Scott, that I feel that was your soul's knowingness that you were going to be separated early, so creating those connective tissues to help your grieving self in the future.
Mm, yeah, that's great. Say that again.
That was your soul's preparation, basically, for knowing that you were going to be separated in this physical reality too soon and having
Mhm.
that connective tissue to help you go through the grieving process.
Yeah, that's a great word, connective tissue. I've never thought of it that way. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Similarly, my husband was huge into music and he like would always have CDs for different trips. And we would like when we were dating, we would sit in the car and he would just play song after song after song for me. And now if I'm in a tough situation or if I'm like nervous out somewhere or whatever, you can bet like one of those songs is going to come on to let me know that he's got me.
Got it. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a beautiful conversation. Trying to I don't want to miss anything. Your
So I'm
reference,
so honored that you're doing this way.
thank
I
you.
just want to tell you, I'm so honored that you're doing this way.
Thank you. I thought it was really important as I dove into your book. I was like, oh, there were so many things that were coming up for me and connections back to my truths and my experiences. So I definitely wanted to call them out. And because I think anybody that's been through loss would, hugely benefit and resonate with your book. Um, the last one I have is you talked about an unscripted path, which to me relates to the uncertainty of your future as you know it, right? I mean, we all pre-grief, pre-major loss, I feel like we all kind of attach to a certain future outcome, living a certain place, retiring a certain way, doing certain things that we've always done with our partner or, our child or whoever it is that we've lost. And not that we quote unquote take it for granted, but in a way we do because we're projecting the future. And that's a huge part of loss is now the future is going to look completely different than we thought it would. So can you talk a little bit about your part in there about the unscripted path and what that means for you and how that's translated for you?
You really hit it. You really hit it accurately when you said we create this image in the future that just like we create this image of how grief needs to be when we're told this, we create this image that this is how we need to be, and this is how we're going to be. And the piece that really shifted that for me was when I did the MDMA and so the backstory behind that. So as people, uh, I'll just do a little education piece. MDMA is this like new wave of drugs that's been around for ages.
Yeah,
But
I was
this,
going to say it's actually returning
yeah,
of
it's
from
returning of.
major research that's
Yeah,
been started in the 60s that proved that this worked.
right. And so people are now using it for PTSD.
Yes.
The important thing around that is that you have a strong relationship with a therapist who knows what your deep, dark secrets
Guided
are,
experience.
right? Very, very important
Mhm.
because when you take MDMA, it doesn't make you high, it makes you feel really loving.
Yes.
That's the easy way to put it. You feel really not as a drunk, you know how drunks are like, "Hey, I love you, buddy." It's not that kind of way. You just feel so loving as an emotion that's there, prevalent above everything else. Um, if everybody took MDMA, we would not be having wars.
Yeah.
We would not. And well, we just need to take these world leaders, give them MDMA, and lock them in a room with each other, and the problems will be solved. Uh, and so you have to have a therapist with you to do this because you're going to be so overwhelmed by the uh, good feelings from the MDMA that the therapist needs to kind of push you to go explore those pieces. MDMA allows you to go to those. Two things happen. MDMA allows you to go to those emotions because you're kind of wrapped in bubble wrap. That's one way to think of it. The other thing that happens is that you discuss this thing that's really horrific with a different emotion happening at the same time, and they kind of get glued a little bit to each other. It's an oversimplification, but that's the important thing to know. Um, I didn't do this MDMA piece with uh, a, a therapist, but in twice in our relationship, I already know what you're going to say, Lindsay, but I'll let you say it when after I tell this piece because it's just like the music piece. Um, Brian and I made time capsules. I'm an overachiever, and so we got this little kit. And a kit. It turned into a Home Depot bucket, a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket, loaded with pictures and nostalgia and movie tickets and receipts, everything from our lives. We built it over a whole year's period of time. In those buckets, we asked people to write letters to the future. Um, and most of the letters that I got from folks were kind of sugary, saccharine, you know. Ha, I hope you're doing well and probably have fake teeth, blah, 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 blah. In that, in those time capsules, I wrote a letter to Brian. He wrote a letter to me. He wrote a letter to himself. And I wrote a letter to me, my future self. When you do something like that, we did our first time capsule in 1998. At our 10-year anniversary, we did that. And then we repeated it at our 25th anniversary, and he died 6 years later. So I had these snapshots of like 2 periods. And I could easily handle the memories of those pieces. The
Mhm.
thing that I could not even touch were the letters to the future. We planned our vision. We're talking about the future that we get attached to, um, was at our 50th anniversary. We'd open those up. So there was this picture of us together at some party, opening them up, sharing it with folks, and then reading the letters to the future. Um, and after he died, those letters became hugely powerful. Um, uh, I taught, Brian smoked cigarettes. So thinking 50, when I was in 1998, thinking 50 years in the future, it was probable that he might die of cancer, like lung cancer or something like that. And the letter that I wrote to myself was, how are you? It started off with, How are you doing? Is Brian still alive? That was the first line in one of the letters. And it was, it's probably not. Um, and uh, it was hugely profound. Um, as you can hear me talking about this now, like the emotions coming
Yeah.
up around this. Um, and so what I did as part of that experiment was I had a buddy who was an EMT who was here for safety because I'm an EMT. I wanted someone to give me that piece in case there were some medical consequences. And I read those letters out loud. And so these time capsules became like the therapist for me. They knew my truth. And so what I did was I had an EMT buddy that came by and he kind of babysat me and I read those letters out loud. Um, and I could not have read them out loud. I could not have gone there without the MDMA bubble wrapping me. They
Mm.
were sitting up there like I could hear them calling me.
Yeah.
Like I could
Yeah.
hear the 5-gallon Home Depot bucket saying,
Yeah.
you know, I'm here. Um, and Brian wrote a letter to the future to me and to himself about, and I read his letters also. They were profoundly impactful. Um, there was no fluff in our letters. Um, and so it was so meaningful that I ended up writing a book about that whole experience.
And don't you feel so? I feel like this connects full circle back to our conversation around fear. We can tend to build things up that we think we can't deal with or handle, like the reading the letters, or for me is like going back to the house that we lived in. Like we can build things up and then there can be this beautiful sense of release that occurs when we let ourselves open that door when we're ready, when we've done the work and we're ready.
Right. And that comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the difference between letting it be and
Yes.
letting go.
Yes.
Because there wasn't stuff to let go of.
Right.
There wasn't stuff to let go of. The
Right.
MDMA didn't let me let go of anything. You could see as I was talking about it, that stuff's still there.
Yeah.
I'm just letting it be.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah. 100%. Scott, this has been such an amazing conversation, and I knew 5 minutes into us starting there was going to be a part two. So I hope that you come back and that we do a part two. I would
I
love
would
to
love
deep
to.
dive into the whole like psychedelic conversation and have that be an episode in and of itself around grief and grief journey, and have you talk about your additional work. For anybody out there listening to the conclusion of this episode, what's the best way to find you and your work?
You can just Google my name right there, G. Scott Graham, and this podcast will come up. All the podcasts I've been on, all my books, and check out the book, The Tao of Grief.
Yes, definitely check out the book. And I will link your information in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Scott. This has been a
Thank
real
you.
pleasure. If this episode resonated with you, that's not a coincidence. That is spirit leading you to where you are meant to be. Choose soul expansion, choose community, choose growth. Join us at our sacred community where healing is better because we do it together. Go to www.thesoulrevival.com.